Chester Maycheg, and he is with the Office of Undersecretary of Defense. I believe he's a deputy there. Do you report to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, CJ?
No, not quite. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute.
Okay, so he'll talk a little bit more about that, but he's been very involved. He is the kind of the key person that has initiated this program, worked with our senators to help get funded through Congress. And you can correct me if I say anything wrong, CJ. Just a little bit about his background. So he is pioneering a mission-focused cyber spectrum education across the United States for the Department of Defense. He has been a career-long DoD civilian. So those of you who are civilians, which is most of you, there's a career track for you. And then we're also involving our OTC students. We've got one military reserve student in here as well. And so there are places for everyone. He's made outstanding contributions, and he has a fairly large budget that he is sort of overseeing to help with cyber education in the United States. I want to say one thing. Way back in 1996, he's been involved with this for about 30 years, but he was a key author of the Air Force Research Lab's Vision for Innovation Warfare. So he's really dedicated to this area of technology, cybersecurity, research, and so forth. So CJ, if you want to say anything else about yourself, that would be awesome. And we'll let you go ahead.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that warm introduction. Really appreciate that. Looks like you did some digging on some LinkedIn sites or someplace to find out where I had been in the beginning of my career, which is actually feels kind of long right now. I've been working for the Department of Defense for about 35 years. And there's just so many things that I have done and had a great time doing them. I've forgotten them, so you have to write these things down. So, hey, first of all, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for the introduction. Second, welcome students. You're the reason I'm here. You're the reason that I have decided not to retire early, but to stay on another 5 years with the Department of Defense, because I absolutely love working with all of you, getting to know you and getting to help foster an interest in cybersecurity and cyber operations to help address some national security challenges that all of us face every day, whether here at home or abroad. And they're here, they're real, and you being here in these seats right here is a step, first step to really just having a little bit more control of your career, of your education, and of your national security. And for that, I thank you for being here, taking the time to be part of this, what I think to be a premier program here at Washington State University to help develop future cyber leaders in the field. So thank you all for being here. I can see some of you here on the screen. My screen is very small, so I'm not going to be able to see if any of you have your hand raised, but I did tell your instructors who invited me here today, if you have any questions, I'd like this to be interactive to the extent that it can be, right? So maybe you might show a hand, maybe I can kind of see way over there, but feel free to grab a mic somewhere and just say, hey, CJ, I have a question. And that's what I'd like this session to be. So let me tell you a little bit about why I'm here and what I'd like to talk about with you maybe for the next 30 minutes or so. So not too long ago, I was a student like you, and I thought maybe I would want to pursue a career in electrical engineering. And it turns out that my very first assignment working for the Department of Defense happened to be in cybersecurity, and I never looked back after that. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what a career is like in the Department of Defense. Second, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the concerns we have in the Department of Defense regarding cybersecurity. These things are real. And yes, you can make a difference both as an intern, and I'll tell you some stories about some things our interns have done, as well as in a career working for the Department of Defense, the national labs, the intelligence agencies, or even our defense industrial base. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about what VICEROY actually is. I think I may have a slide or two about that too. So that's kind of how things are going to be, structured here. I'll take questions, like I said, during the middle of the presentation if you'd like. but I'm going to leave some time for Q&A at the end as well. You pretty much kind of an ask me anything session. All right. How much time do I get a year? Where have I traveled to? How much do I get paid? Where do you need to go to find scholarship programs? All that kind of stuff. I'm here for you. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next slide and let's see if this slide clicker works. Yeah, there's a picture of somebody looks like me. All right. So this is me, right? So my name is Chester Mayshag, right? I go by CJ. And I've been working in the Department of Defense for 35 years. I'll tell you a little bit about, let's see, currently, let's see, what's my current title? And I don't mean that jokingly, it changes, right? So I'm a Director of Science and Technology Research and Academic Engagement. So what that means is that in the roles that I've served just in the last 5 years here, I've managed budgets of 550 million, 2 billion, and 4 billion in the various roles that I've served. Mainly it has to do, when you're up in the Pentagon, it's really about taking the experience of everything you've learned as a bench scientist, as a program manager, a lab manager, a supervisor, a portfolio manager, all these kind of things. And then now, here you are, you're in like the big chair and you're hearing about things that, issues that are kind of shaping the department over the next 5, 10, 15 years, competition with peer adversaries such as PRC, Russia, Iran, DPRK. And how are we going to posture this budget to best create the cool things that we need to create to help defend our homeland, defend our critical infrastructure, provide cognitive security to prevent us from being unduly influenced by our adversaries. And then, yes, when we need to project power, we can do that too. We can take the fight to the adversary. So it's a daunting task. Let me just say, between that task and the new task that I've adopted over the last 3 years or so, academic outreach, I have been trying to, coming to the realization, right? I was just like you 30, 35 years ago, and now I'm like me. I'm like 56 years old. I got to start thinking about, do I want to retire? And if I want to retire, I have to make sure that we have the talent pipeline necessary in cyber and in spectrum to meet those challenges. And this is why I'm excited about talking with you, excited about telling you about my career with the Air Force and the Department of Defense, right? So I run 3 academic programs, VICEROY being the biggest of them, and it's a congressional ad. And this, ever since I've taken on this program, I felt like I haven't worked, which is lesson number 1, I think, maybe of this presentation, right? When you find the right thing in your career, you're going to be excited about it, or just in school. It's going to be the thing that you'll do a little bit more studying on before the exam. It'll be the thing that you work a little bit longer on the project or the lab. When you're doing cybersecurity, it'll be the desire to have that extra laptop sitting around. You can trash and reload the operating system, or put Kali Linux on, or any of these other kind of things on it, and just start blowing things away, and then rebuilding, and then blowing them away again. That's how you know you're in the right place. Because when you can do those things, and you have that kind of drive to just learn more, and participate in competitions and be in these seminars and things like that, those are going to be the things, the difference in getting just a degree and, and being competent in the area and being, excelling in the area and never feeling like you're working in the process. This can be things can propel you. So if you feel excited, you feel like a tinkerer, you're definitely in the right place already. And if you're not yet, you might be, and give yourself some time. Because the other thing I like to tell everybody who participates in this program, VICEROY, is that this is not necessarily a program for know-it-alls. Because if you know it all, you don't need to be here. But the thing is that it's really a program for learn-it-alls, giving everyone an opportunity in a fairly, it's a competitive environment, but a low-threat competitive environment where we mentor, we help each other, we show people the way, we show people to be the kind of leaders that we would want to be led, that we would want leading us, right? The ones that mentor us, the ones that help us through, the coach us through. So that's the other thing we try to do here with VICEROY. Okay, so this is the program that I'm working primarily now. I'm no longer really doing the cyber science and technology research engagement stuff, and I'm really, really happy, right? So I worked 30 years at the Air Force Research Laboratory in Rome, New York. Some of you have been roamed in New York. If anybody here in this room, have you been participating as a Maven before? VICEROY Maven, show of hands. I see one hand, two, right. So there's a great place to grow up, low cost of living, all sorts of exciting things in that lab. Let me just tell you, everything that I did as any of those roles I told you about, bench scientist, program manager, lab manager, and stuff like that, pretty much if I had a good idea, the government research environment says yes, and they try to find a way to let you go and pursue those goals. If you have ideas and innovation, pretty much I found a way to do what I wanted to do my whole career. Darn, that's exciting. You go to work for industry, you might get lucky. You might get lucky, but most of the time they have a product or something they have to put out. And they're hiring you for a particular reason, and when they're done with you, they're done with you, you know. So if you're lucky, you can move on to the next project. But I've been very, very lucky. In my 35 years, let's see, I've been on frigates. I've been in, I think I probably got a tour of a tank once. I've driven a Humvee. I've flown in a C-130. I've flown in some other VIP planes and things like that. I've been at headquarters NSA, headquarters CIA. I could have went to Area 51. I just haven't gotten out there yet. I've done really everything I wanted to do. And if I wanted to go to Australia or Hawaii or Europe or anything like that, they'd send me in an instant. So if you like to travel, working for the Department of Defense and research or cyber operations, you're going to get a chance to do that. Show of hands. Who here thinks they might want to visit Hawaii sometime? Anyone? I can't. There's a couple of hands going up, right? That I can just see here, and there's probably some off the side of the screen, right? So I'm working a program out there called Pacific Intelligence Innovation Initiative. Basically, how do we grow and keep good cyber spectrum talent out there in Hawaii? It's a Senator Hirono's initiative, and they've got all sorts of great opportunities out there for anyone who's interested in working for U.S. Indo-PACOM, for NSA, for CIA. So if any of you are interested in getting hooked up with an internship out there, maybe in your rising junior, rising senior year, let me know. So Dr. Van Wy, he can get you in touch with me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can introduce yourself to me on LinkedIn saying, hey, guess what? I was in the WSU program and I heard you and I'm interested in working with your team to get an internship someday. How do I get started? We help you out with that. The folks at WSU can also help you with that. Dr. Asafal, he can get you in touch as well. So anyway, 30 years working for the research lab. Bottom line is, had a great time there. Did all sorts of things. Covert optical communication, X509 certificate standards, digital forensics standards. I helped co-author some of them that are in use today. I helped pioneer memory scraping. I tried and launched a company to help with that. I did all sorts of cool things. I'm not going to go on about me. I'm just going to paint a sketch to say that you can do some cool things. Concurrently, all right, I also worked in academia. So at the same time I was in Rome, New York, I was teaching classes at Utica University in cybersecurity, network security, open source cyber intelligence, and a couple other topics. Had a great time there. So kind of know what it's like, to be a student, kind of know what it's like to give a lecture, kind of know what it's like to try to help guide students and mentor them. So, I'm really excited with working with all of you to help make you, the best cybersecurity and cyber operations students and practitioners you can be, and help you, guide you in finding the career that's going to be great for you. All right, let me move on to the next chart. Okay, so I probably talked a little bit about this then already. Came from a little town, and so for those of you who've been in Rome, about 30 minutes away was a little village called Waterville, known for two different things. It used to be the international hops capital of the world in the late 1800s. It's also the birthplace of inventor George Eastman of Eastman Kodak. Some of you are familiar with Kodak photography line. That's where I was born. The computer you see in the upper right-hand corner, that was my first computer at school, the Commodore PET computer. And how did I know I was interested in computers because I would sit and tinker with them. I'd figure out, how to write programs. First, I saw this game Space Invaders for it. I thought that was cool. I said, can I write my own games? Can I taunt my classmates? Can I write a program that seems like it's the command line? And when my fellow students type things, it types things back and insults them. This is what we used to do. It wasn't politically incorrect back then. It is now, but just to let you know, this is the kind of things we did. So if this is the kind of thing that you're doing, hey, maybe you've got it in you. I have some education. Education's important. Certifications are also important, right? Some of the classes that you're taking, at WSU are going to be preparing you. They're going to have some experiential elements, project elements that kind of put into play the things that you're learning into some sort of practical mission outcome. Help you understand what it is that you're learning and why you're learning it. So yeah, I got a BS. I have a master's in financial crimes management as well, and went to Air War College too. Over here, like I said, 30 years at AFRL, 5 years at the Pentagon, managed lots and lots of money. Launched this thing called the Digital Forensics Research Workshop. I don't know if any of you ever heard of it, but it's kind of like in its 21st or 22nd year now. It's an international conference on digital forensics tools and standards. Lots of fun. All I can just say is lots of fun. Over here in the lower right-hand corner, you see me standing with a couple of my colleagues in front of a big diesel truck, cargo truck. They're kind of similar to what we call a deuce and a half, a 2.5 ton truck. Reason we're worth that is we were demonstrating that day that we could attack that thing while it was driving down the road and put it into high gear, backwards, brake, or totally take control away from the operator. Let me just tell you, it was the scariest 20 seconds of my life. I said, stop this thing from happening. So all sorts of cool things that we get to experiment with in the Department of Defense. So as I said, I work for the Department of Defense. I work for an organization called the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. In industry speak, it's the CTO, the Chief Technology Officer for the Department of Defense, the Honorable Heidi Shue. Her goal is to make sure that the U.S. military has the technical tools, labs, and workforce that it needs to create, maximize the capabilities of our Department of Defense and make sure that we never have to fight a fair fight. There's 14 critical technology areas that are important to the department. One of those 14 areas is something called integrated sensing and cyber. You see that over here on the right-hand side. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out what are the interesting, new, disruptive capabilities we can produce by taking computers and integrating with wireless capabilities and motion sensing and things like that to give us that advantage. So we said, do we have anything like that in industry that's an example? Well, actually, we do. We got one of these things right here, right? It's a computer. It has 5G, wireless, everything's wireless nowadays, right? Bluetooth, all these other things. Sensing, right? It has all sorts of accelerometers and stuff like that, right? This is something we never thought we needed until Steve Jobs said, hey, what if we did this? What if we put these things together and produce this thing that people didn't think they needed? We'd create demand for it. And he was right. The iPhone was born. Now, these and Android phones, we can't live without these. They've revolutionized things. They've created almost like a revolution in civilian affairs. We carry these things with us anywhere. We feel naked without them. What is that new capability or set of capabilities that the Department of Defense needs on their air, sea, undersea, space platforms that's going to give us that edge? That is the challenge. That little red dot, by the way, that's where I work, in case any of you were wondering. And then I got moved out of that office, and I'm located in a place called the Mark Center, about 3 miles down the road. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Let's talk about cyberspace and cyber operations, right? These might be a little dated, especially because General Nakasone, he's no longer the director of NSA, but what's important is what every one of them are saying here, right? So when President Biden took office, he issued a national security memorandum saying, hey, look, federal government needs to do a good job. We have a lot of critical infrastructure, and things here in the US that make us a target. And there's no sense of us developing offensive capabilities unless we can secure ourselves as well. And he said, we need to improve our efforts to deter, protect, and detect and respond to malicious cyber campaigns through significant investments in cybersecurity. That means capabilities, labs, and you. Second, former Southern U.S. Special Operations Commander Richard Clark. Now remember, Special Operations Forces, right? You know, think of SEAL Team 6 and all those other service, you know, Delta Force and that kind of thing, right? These are the people, you know, with the guns, they kick down doors and that kind of stuff, right? Look at what he's saying. The most important in the mission no longer is a person kicking down the door, but the cyber operator who the team has to work their cyber tools into the fight. That's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. We're going to be using cyber to sense, track, and possibly create the effects that we need to keep our people safe. Finally, General Nakasone, former U.S. Cyber Command. Cyber forces require a comprehensive integrated cyberspace architecture to achieve and sustain the insight, agility, and blah, 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 blah. Point is, the thing is that any of you have participated in cyber competitions, right? You had a team. The team, if you have one person, okay, I can do things with one person. I can do things with two people. I can do things with three people. I can do things with four. We got to start planning now. I can do things with five. I reach a point where it's hard to create big teams and coordinate all those tools and what comes out of one tool and funneling that into another tool. What he's saying here is that we need to find a way that with a limited number of people, 6,600 currently in Cyber Command, how do we engage the global environment, which has a limitless number of adversaries and targets? What do we need in terms of technology capability, like a joint cyber warfighting architecture that all these tools plug into? How do we share data, sense collectively, and apply effects at scale? These are the kind of capabilities that we need. This is the kind of capabilities, these are the capabilities for which we are developing talent. This is why CTFs in of themselves are interesting in developing skills, but are not the be-all end-all in developing cyber warfighting and cyber defending forces and capability. It's a difference, as somebody told me one time, it's a difference of being a pilot in an aero club versus understanding the tactics, techniques, and procedures about how to fly planes in formation and be able to do force on force and do enemy dogfights and things like that. Many of you probably are familiar with U.S. Cyber Command, right? I'm going to tell you, when I was your age, right? I'm not supposed to say it, but anyway, when I was younger, right? You know, we had the Army, we had the Navy, we had the Air Force, right? And they go fight. No, that's not the answer, believe it or not. None of the services fight. Combatant commands fight, and services provide people and resources to those commanders. So we have different types of commands. I talked to you about Special Operations Command. Cyber Command is another type of command in which we have Army cyber forces, Navy cyber forces, and Air Force cyber forces that we contribute people with knowledge and expertise to that fight, and then they fight on the behalf of or defend on the behalf of Cyber Command. So 6,600 people across 133 force teams, and they are arranged as what we call protection teams, support teams, meaning like intelligence teams, and then we have mission teams, which project cyber capability. So you got your offense people, your defense people, and then you got your intelligence people that support them. And that's kind of the way Cyber Command works. And it's postured that way because of the big bubbles you see at the top, right? These are our primary missions in cyberspace. Defend DoD network systems and information, defend the homeland and U.S. national interests like elections and things like that to make sure that our adversaries are not voting for us, both figuratively and literally. And then finally, provide cyber support to military operations, where the cyber operator is fighting right alongside of the air pilot, the tank operator, and the ship captain in terms of projecting power and defending. Who's here heard of some cyber attacks in the news? Come on, everybody should be raising your hand on this. Hopefully, unless the screen froze. If the screen froze, then I've got a problem because I've been talking for a while. Nobody's been hearing me, right? But everybody should be hearing about cyber in the news. And if you're not hearing about cyber in the news, let's pick some newsworthy sources to find it. Social media, just as another aside, lesson number 3 on here. Okay, in my generation, there used to be a cartoon that showed 2 dogs talking to each other, one behind a computer, and one of them saying to the other, as he's operating the computer, he says, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog, right? So the thing is that you don't know who you're talking to on the internet. You don't know how informed they are. You don't know what their intentions are. The bottom line is you probably should get your news from informed sources and don't trust everything you see, right? That's exactly, what Abraham Lincoln said. Then I read that on the internet, so then you can trust that. My point being is that make sure you divest yourselves of just social media. For those of you who may be looking for your news there, look to a variety of sources. Always evaluate, compare, and contrast them against each other so that you understand and have the best information necessary to assess what's going on. Subscribe to news feeds pertaining to the cyber field, either new technology or Krebs on security or some of these that will keep you abreast of the latest trends. The reason I bring up cyber in the news is if we take a look at how cyber has changed, cyber operations have changed by our adversaries over the last decade. This is just a decade and a half. I could put more recent stuff in here. It's really more of the same. The thing is that 20 years ago, both Russia and PRC identified that, they could wag the dog by using the internet to attack us. We created the internet, and now they're going to use it against us. And so the easiest thing for them to do was to steal data. And there's been a number of socialized attack sets, APTs, from various countries about how they've stolen either defense industrial base secrets, military secrets, critical infrastructure secrets, even stole the color white from DuPont. Anyone know that story? Stealing the color white from DuPont? I think I see one hand go up. That's an assignment for the rest of you about intellectual property theft and how easy it is to get away with it. So anyway, just imagine terabytes of data over the past decade being stolen. Information about government officials, people with clearances and things like that, they might be targetable. This is what we saw in the 2008 to 2015 timeframe. But then we started seeing kind of a knee in a curve, where now a lot of practicing was being done, getting into Russia getting into our energy infrastructure. I don't know if any of you heard of dark energy attack sets. Look that up. China being into them as well. You heard about the Colonial Pipeline attack. You've heard about Stuxnet. That was ours. Slow down Iran from building a nuclear bomb, right? Where we're moving to and where we're going to, right, is we're moving to, classic IT infrastructure, hack into databases, steal information, to now progression to more bespoke and targeted attacks towards embedded systems, critical infrastructure, IoT, and yes, what might be the next thing? Automotive infrastructure, the actual cars themselves. We'll get to that in a minute. Many of you have been following the news on the West Coast about something that happened about 2 months ago. I think it was March 26th. What happened in March 26th over here on the East Coast? Can anyone tell me? Okay, I don't hear anybody. We had a ship called the Dolly run into the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Was that a cyber attack? No. Could it have been? Oh, yes. And there you have attack on a single ship that has had a long-lasting impact on a port. The Port of Baltimore, I believe, is the largest East Coast merchant port for our country, and no ships have been able to enter or leave in the past 2 months. And they're talking about not having that bridge repaired for almost 3 to 4 more years. They'll get more traffic under there, don't get me wrong. But here's the thing about this is how, an attack in one domain could have potentially affected, critical infrastructure and things like that in another domain. You don't have to accomplish everything with cyber, but this could have been a cyber attack. And yes, the kind of infrastructure that's within a ship, their NMEA 2000 backbone that controls all their propulsion, things like that, built on the same technology, CAN bus technology that is in our automobiles. So very feasible to have done that attack as a cyber attack. We talked about vehicles. Vehicles are not what they used to be. They used to be these gas guzzling things with no digital stuff in them whatsoever. We used to curse at them because they were unreliable. We had to choke them. Choke, literally, you set the choke on an accelerator to start them, right? A lot of times they wouldn't start. Your batteries would run dead. We had no idea about where other vehicles were on the road until we got to the traffic jam. It was a terrible, terrible world. Now our engines are all electronic. You turn a key, but it's not really turning a key the way it used to be. It's pushing a button, and the car itself is figuring out how to crank the engine and when it's up to RPM, when this disengages starter and things like that, and a whole bunch of other things. Plus, they see the road now. They have all sorts of tailored sensors, audio, visual. They have infotainment systems, GPS, OnStar, they're satellite and cellular connected when we drive around. They're amazing. The amount of data that these vehicles generate when we're driving down the road is approximately a gigabyte a minute. Okay. It's actually, or well, let's say a gigabyte a second, pardon me. Okay, that's even worse. Lots of stuff. And it's getting worse, right? The lunar lander had 60,000 lines of code in it for Apollo 11. I'm not sure which one that was, right? The lunar lander, right? Neil Armstrong's mission. The Lincoln MKZ, 100 processors on board, right? The typical F-150 has 100 million lines of code. Amazing. An amazing attack surface on that as well. So how to keep these things secure is a difficult venture. There's not enough cybersecurity engineers in Detroit, honestly, to support the top three automakers and all their tier 1 suppliers. Maybe only about 250 of them total. We have a Viceroy agreement with the University of Detroit Mercy to provide those cybersecurity engineers to help identify new ways to build more secure architectures and to prevent cyber attacks from happening on vehicles and trucks. We're also helping to provide this talent pipeline for U.S. Army Vehicle Development Command, who's building autonomous vehicles for the battlefield, autonomous supply vehicles for logistics and things like that, where we don't have to drive the vehicles from point A to point B, but they drive themselves. It's amazing stuff. Supported by AI, machine learning. Of course, we all know that there's a whole bunch of issues associated with that. You're going to be on the forefront of that too, helping to secure those. So really scary stuff. Vehicles are spying on us as we're driving down the road. In fact, the data that the vehicles produce is actually more valuable than the profit made on producing a vehicle. So much so that China has a couple of companies, one called Geely, another one called BYD, Build Your Dream. They are working to try to flood the US market with their vehicles. In fact, they can sell a vehicle for a quarter of the price that we sell here. We could put a 100% tariff on their vehicles and they would still be half the price of our vehicles, or 3/4 of the price of our vehicles. So why would they be interested in doing that other than just being a global car leader and putting us out of business? The data. China has some very special data sharing agreements with anyone that does business in China. Our top 3 automakers found that out the hard way on a slippery slope of when they entered into joint partnerships with China. First, it was, here, come bring your business to China, we'll support you. Oh, well, bring your business to China, but share all your intellectual property. It doesn't leave here. Oh, bring your business to China, share your intellectual property, but any of your data that you generate here as well has to stay here, can't leave. And it got progressively worse, right? So China has taken that information and have built competitive companies to compete against us. And another feature of Chinese government is any of these vehicles that they sell abroad send a constant data stream back to China, where the government has eminent domain over that. So that means these vehicles are driving around, they're collecting information about all of us here in the US. It's pretty scary. So is this a technological problem? Maybe. Is this a policy problem? Yeah, probably. So the point here is that this is something that affects all of you every day. It will affect you, right? Something to think about. This is not just a technical problem, but it's a policy problem too. And hence why in the realm of cyber, it's good to have a good legal mind, a good policy mind to think, how do we solve a problem? Is it a people thing? Is it a policy thing? Is it a technology thing? Is it something different? Is it an economic thing? Recognize that the world is driven by a lot of interrelated factors. So here's the last part of our presentation then, is about Viceroy. So what is Viceroy? You're all here. You're here to help, hopefully, take interest in some of these challenges we have before us. And I am convinced you are interested in taking these challenges because you are here today. And I thank you for that. The program that I run, a national program known as Viceroy, the point here with Viceroy is to help increase the quantity and quality of our graduates who are coming out of our schools to be able to work in a national security field and be productive on day one because you understand the strategic context, you understand how to apply what you've learned in school towards practical problems, and you have a love of your country, citizenship, and good communication skills and things like that too. The opportunity here is to help you as you're going through your courses understand the application and help you realize that, hey, I want to be in here and this is why I'm learning this and therefore this is why I want to take more of these kind of classes. I'll tell you, many years ago, I sat in classes at Rochester Institute of Technology and they told me about the student to the left and the student to the right who wasn't going to be there. Why were they not going to be there? Were they dummies? No. They were told to enter into this degree field, but they didn't really understand what they'd be doing. They didn't understand why this was going to be a good career. They didn't know, they didn't own it for themselves yet. This is what I'm hoping to do with all of you through Viceroy and through your great mentors and leaders that you have at WSU to help you understand better about why you're taking this coursework, why it matters, and why you should stick with it. The other thing we did too is we help you in this program. When you seek out an internship, we help you find a place to live. We help to find affordable housing and transportation, depending on where it is that you go, because we know that that is a hard thing to do for only 2 months. Again, I remember being a junior driver, right? Remember trying to rent a car, can't rent a car under 25. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I need a place for the summer, just 2 months, right? Low security deposit, blah, blah, blah. Nobody's going to rent to us, right? As kids, right? That's the way I felt, right? So the thing is that we help you out depending on where it is that you want to work during the summer. We can set you up when you're in Viceroy with affordable housing and transportation and the kinship of a cohort that's also working at that location that you can depend upon. So that's the opportunity, is to work with you. And my job is to develop academic centers of excellence known as virtual institutes to help execute the program. And that's what WSU is to us. You're one of 13 virtual institutes. You have, I believe, 4, if not 5 schools in your pipeline. You have Montana State, you have Idaho, and then you have a few community colleges too as your pipeline, right? So through that program, we are developing academic programs that help school students in high school recognize that this is a field they want to go in, and possibly go to one of these schools. Provide that practical instruction and experience through research projects, capstone projects, having guest speakers. WSU has a great guest speaker series, helping you understand what it's like working in a career field. Please attend those. You're going to love it. And please ask questions about their careers. Also, elements of the program are strategic foreign languages. Guess what? Not everybody speaks English. Not everyone codes in English. So understanding other cultural norms, biases, and motivations will help you better understand the world around you and why people do what they do. Secondly, mathematical cryptography and foundations is another important area. And third, data science. And I think you can probably understand that for itself. So these are some of the courses that we develop with the VIs and certification to go along with them. These are our locations. It's probably a little tough to see this. It's probably a bit of an eye chart, but all those red dots up there in the upper left-hand corner, that's you. That's all you up there, okay? And like I said, WSU is one of my first virtual institutes and one of the ones I'm most proud of. So I just say, keep on rocking it, keep on doing a great job, take advantage of the opportunities you have in front of you, not only to explore internship opportunities in the Pacific Northwest, but also in the San Antonio area, the Midwest, in the DC area where I currently live, and elsewhere around the country. And we'll help you with that. It's kind of tough to make that transition on your own for an internship for a summer, but working through the Griffith Institute and working with some of your leaders at WSU, they can tell you how to do that. Viceroy and how it's different. You've probably familiar with you've probably heard of STEM out the wazoo since you've been in high school. Like, there's a STEM program. We're going to do Legos and we're going to do this and do that, right? Those are the foundations, right? Those foundations that help attract you, to help you realize that technology is cool, and it is. It is cool stuff, right? Then on top of that, right, you go to either you go to short courses or you get a 2-year or 4-year education. Those are your foundational skills, the basics of, confidentiality, integrity, availability, and things like that, cryptography, data science, all that kind of stuff. But now it's about how do I apply these things, right? And it's the attestation of these. These are actually completing the degree, getting a certificate or certification, or participating in a capture the flag or micro challenges and things like that. Ahead of you, you're going to be looking at demonstrating that you're qualified for a government job. And that is that's changed a little bit in the past couple of years, believe it or not. It used to be, let me not tell you what it used to be. Let me just tell you what it is now. Now, to qualify for a cyber job, it's easier than it used to be. In some cases, you need a degree. In some cases, you need experience. In some cases, you need a certification. And in some cases, there's a trade-off between those. It's great because now you can start entering the cyber field at different levels of experience and capability, and possibly before you even have finished your 4-year degree. By the way, finish your 4-year degree. Help teaches you to think better, in my opinion. Certifications and things like that, I think they're great for teaching you how to succeed now. I think the 4-year master's and PhD education are the kind of things that teach you how to think for a lifetime. What are the new challenges? How do you apply yourself to them? Do both. Viceroy, we pull all those things together. We leverage all those programs, including scholarship programs, and we give you a mission focus. We show you what the adversary is doing to us notionally in a scenario, and you have an opportunity to defend against it. That's what we do in our capstones and challenges. It's some of the things that you're trying to do in your cyber club as well. Yeah. We have 2 internship programs for the summer. We have something called Viceroy Maven, not to be confused with Project Maven or Google's Maven. That's different. Viceroy Maven is where you apply to come to either Rome, New York, Delphi, Maryland, or San Diego, California for 8 weeks during the summer. And you will, well, I'll tell you in the next slide what you'll be doing, right? But it's a cyber and spectrum boot camp to go deep into high stakes problem solving in these technology areas. And it helps bridge the gap from what you don't quite know yet after completing your 1st year. And it brings you up probably to the end of 2nd year capability or almost end of third year capability in cyber by the time you're done with it. And the students who come out of Maven tend to lead their classes. They tend, the ROTC students who tend to graduate, they tend to lead their lieutenant, junior officer classes in cyber after leaving Maven. So we only have about 150 slots for that for the summer. It's highly competitive. If you apply for it, I think you applied for it in the August timeframe, September timeframe. Your instructors, they endorse you, and then we do interviews, we rack and stack you, and we offer you a opportunity to come to one of those 3 locations. And we set you up with housing, transportation, and you do some interesting projects. Let me tell you a little bit about them, right? So probably talked a lot about most of this already. There's a 10-week option available. Many of our students have high GPAs. The average is 3.65, but don't let that scare you either, okay? Topics: leadership, community service, writing, public speaking, research, a career day, capstone project, blueing trips, and we have a graduation, formal graduation dinner or lunch with that. Lots of interesting projects. We have Friday Fun Day, where we do projects in cyber and spectrum. Learn to use, like, for example, how to program a software-defined radio to be a motion sensor. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. So apply for that. There's just other things in the curriculum element. There we go, blah, blah, blah. We have a national competition. I want to let you know about this too. It's usually during National Cybersecurity Week, which is in October. The purpose here really is to generate academic interest in Viceroy from students at the participating schools. So basically, we're inviting students to form teams of approximately 3 to 5 students. There's some optimal number around 4 or 5 to compete against other schools for the Viceroy Cup. And the competition last year was called Dr. Boom. It's so Dr. Boom is the evil scientist who's put a physical bomb someplace, and you have to defuse it by hacking into a computer and picking the locks there. And there's all sorts of trap doors and things like that and triggers that you have to sense. And if you complete round 1, guess what? There's 6 more levels of higher difficulty. We had one school last year who completed all 7 levels. Fear the Beards from University of Alabama, Huntsville. I'm hoping, it's my hope next year that Washington State University can hang that banner from the rafters of their gymnasium that they won in 2024. So look for an announcement from your instructors in September and start thinking about putting together a team. At least one student on the team has to be a Viceroy student. And we have ROTC locations. If you're in ROTC, yeah, it's tough to fit Viceroy curriculum into your busy schedule, but things like Dr. Boom, you can attend that on weekends or do that in weeknights and things like that too. So there's ways of participating. Of course, the seminar series, that kind of thing too. Some of the locations that we help our students, with the logistics of travel and housing and things like that are at Naval Sea Systems Command in Keyport, Washington, Joint Base San Antonio in Texas, Keesler Air Force Base in Keesler, Mississippi, Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. And we also have Naval Research Lab and Army Research Laboratory in DC. And we've got some other locations that we're thinking of ginning up as well. So we're here to help support you. These are the kind of things we help you with as an envoy. So after, your 2nd or 3rd year of college and you want to go work for, you have some skills and you have a geographical location or maybe an employer in mind, we can try to match that with employers that need you in the locations and types that you need. So it's a kind of intensive process where we get to know you, but we think that by doing so, you're going to get to work someplace you want to work, doing things you want to do in some place of the country you want to be. What an idea, right? So this is what we strive to do. We have testimonials from students, but have taken Maven, students that have been in Envoy as well. Basically, the bottom line is that students who think they understood what DoD and national security problem set careers were like participated in Maven, participated in Envoy, and they said, wow, this turned my head around. I did not realize I could do these things. I could have a clearance. I could do this. I could do that, that kind of thing. And this has just made me more excited about the schoolwork that I'm doing. Some of my students have developed mission data files for the 350th Spectrum Warfare Wing to help us test electronic warfare capabilities and defense capabilities for our aircraft so they can survive better in combat. That was amazing. That was last summer. I've had some of my students, two of my students, each spin off their own companies. One in Northeastern and the other in Georgia. One of them has won money from the Defense Innovation Unit for $50,000 to start a company. So a lot, even though these students didn't end up in the Department of Defense, they're now working in as entrepreneurs in the industry, better understanding national security problems, potentially innovating in capabilities that we need. The one woman that won this $50,000, I think, she's that and some of her own crowdsource funding built a company called Defend, which is using AI and machine learning to better characterize attackers and defend against them. So pretty cool stuff. I'm going to end on this slide. I probably went a little over on time. This here is from the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Colin Cowell. And this was him last summer at the NATO Youth Summit. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I bolded and italicized a few things for emphasis, but the bottom line, and I think this all applies to you here, right? You're convening today at a time of tremendous change and grave threats, right? We've seen what's going on in Europe. We see what's going on in China. We see what's going on in the Middle East. This stuff does not get better, but we navigate through this, right? We had the Cuban Missile Crisis of the early 1960s. Guess what? We all survived. We got through it. That seems like child's play compared to what we're dealing with now, right? So at the same time, you're confronting a rise of disinformation and the implications of disruptive technologies. So having the ability to recognize that we're being influenced from beyond our borders, both on social media and in the news and other places and so forth, and being able to defend against that is really, really important. Your role in devising and implementing these creative solutions begins with your decision to engage and serve. And this is what you are here today doing, and I applaud you for that. Young leaders like you are integral to our collective effort to safeguard the rules-based international order and our way of life and democracy here in our country. We need people who are not only looking out for themselves, but are invested in making the world a better place. And with that, again, I just want to say thank you for participating in this 2-week summer workshop at WSU. Thank you for participating in the Viceroy program. And at this point, I'll take any questions that you have.
Yeah, so if you have a question, just go ahead and stand up and say hi and then talk to the camera here. It'll should focus on you after a couple seconds, and then CJ will be able to see you. So, any questions? What, okay, CJ, yeah, we've got, I think, 8 students from WSU going to Maven this year. What kind of activities do they have to look forward to?
Great question. Thank you. So the thing is that whenever you're in a strange place, we never leave you alone, right? So here you're going to be coming to Rome, New York, and like, what's in Rome, New York, right? So first of all, you're going to be in an awesome place that is kind of, let me think what it's like in Washington. Well, it's not quite like, it's not as lush as Seattle, but it's not as dry as where you are, right? So you've got mountains, Adirondacks, hiking, camping. You've got all sorts of cool things like that, like rafting, and so there's that. You have the St. Lawrence River, the Thousand Islands. You've got Niagara Falls. You've got wine country. You've got lots of activities in the area right there. Secondly, the student life, let's talk a little bit about that. You're 2.5 hours, I think, from Niagara Falls. Many students go there. Many go to Boston or New York City, which is an easy train ride away. Some of them have gone to Montreal. Oh la la, right? So I think that's an awesome place to go. So it's a great springboarding place to visit other places to start too. Third, let's talk a little bit about Maven itself, right? So the first week you're going to receive some orientation, you're going to get some talks, but what you're going to do, you're going to hear some speakers from around the Air Force, but also probably from NSA and a couple other organizations with Department of Defense talking about their careers and engaging you about what it is to be a leader. There's going to be Dr. Kamal Jabbour, who is a retired ST, senior technology. He's kind of equivalent of a one-star general evil scientist kind of thing, right? So he'll talk to you very frankly about careers, management, leadership, technical decision-making, education versus training, things like that. Very, very insightful, very good advice for the rest of your career. You're going to go on some field trips. One field trip you're going to go on is to West Point, which is on the Hudson River, about 3 miles, not 3 miles, 3.5 hours south of Rome. And you're going to visit the Army Cyber Institute. You're going to talk to researchers there that are doing some robotics. You're going to be seeing actually some of my investments from the Pentagon being put to use to rapidly reconfigure networks and model and simulate different types of protocols there. You're going to talk to military leaders. You're going to be hearing some stories of military leadership. You're going to hear about the history of the area. Oh, also, you're going to be touring a ship up in Albany, and you're going to be hearing from some people, I think actually from World War II, is that possible? I guess it is, right? You're going to hear stories about how the ship was used in World War II, and maybe some of the people who still run the ship there. There's a trip to Gettysburg. Maybe that's for my ACE students, but there's other types of field trips available too. So those are just a couple of the things that a student can experience in addition to, oh, my top mavens. I usually take my top 10% or 5% of mavens, and they come with me to the Pentagon, and they get a tour of the Pentagon, and they visit the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering or her deputy. And they get to talk about their projects. Last year, oh my God, it was just great. We had the students were talking to Dr. David Honey, who was a former Air Force guy, former IARPA guy, former DARPA guy. And they were talking to him about AI technologies and things like that. And the student was just keeping right up with Dr. Honey, and he was learning some things from them. Fascinating. He was sold on you. So lots of cool things. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks. What else we got?
I got a quick question. I'm Freeman. So I'm graduating in about a semester after this summer, so I'll be like graduating in the dead of winter. But I was wondering if there's any what kind of opportunities in this program are there for like soon-to-be graduates or graduates?
Yeah, good point there, right? So first of all, we're trying to grow our current internship network so that we're tracking students as they go from internship to internship, and then using that as a good indicator for where we might be able to match them best for permanent employment. That being said, anytime a student says, I'm graduating soon, I have these skills and I have these interests, can you find me a job that's best suited for me? The answer is yes. And I have a person at the Griffith Institute. Her name is Jennifer McCullough. Some of you in the room who've been in Maven before recognize the name. She can take your name, and we can try to match you up depending on upon your interests. What will your degree be in?
It's in computer science.
Okay. Any special concentration focus to it?
Besides the CySER certificate, nothing else.
Okay, and just since we're talking here, not to use up everybody's time here, but I'm giving you folks an example of the conversation we're gonna have here, right? So do you have a vision for the kind of organization you want to work for within, say, Department of Defense or elsewhere? If you have any,
Not specifically.
did you want to work on the East Coast or West Coast or the midsection?
West Coast would be nice.
Right. So folks, you can see where this line of questioning goes, right? We start with, hey, I have a comp sci degree, I want a job, right? To now to, well, is there a specialization, like, for example, is it in digital forensics, right? Is it in cybersecurity policy? Is it in so on and so forth, certified ethical hacking, right? So it helps us whittle things down a little bit, right? Then we figure out, like, well, it's like, hey, I come from a Navy family. I'd really like to go work for the Navy, that's where my heart is. Like to know that kind of thing. We try to match you up that way. And then finally, where maybe geographically is most suited to you, right? Well, we might find out that the gentleman who just spoke up, right, he might be willing to work for the West Coast, but not in Arizona, right? Maybe he'd like to work someplace that looks a little bit more like, Seattle, right? A little greener. Don't know, right? But this is where the conversation goes. And the thing is that the more information we can get from our students about really what they think they want, the better we can put them someplace where they're going to thrive and want to stay. That's the difference with what we try to do here in this program. So think about the answers to those questions. When you go to a job fair and somebody says to you, what kind of job do you want? Don't stop with just cybersecurity. Think about, well, I want to be in cyber defense. I like IT. I like critical infrastructure. The things that I see happening in the news right now, I want to make a difference to be able to prevent adversaries from just sitting there lurking and doing testing or whatever like that, and practicing within our IT systems, infrastructure systems, so that on a single day that they want to turn their life upside down, they just push a button. No, we want to make them work harder than that. Those are the kind of things that I would like you to bring to the job interview. And to the extent that you're not sure yet, go to those seminars. Learn as much as you can from others. Ask questions. Good question. Thank you for asking that. Who else has got one? You can ask me anything. All right. Bernie, I think the students have had a long day, and I appreciate all of you for sitting through it. And I just want to say thank you for having the opportunity to chat with you. I hope to meet some of you in person, either out there on the West Coast or maybe one of our internship sites in the future, okay? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, CJ. We're going to go over to our poster session next.